are ably represented by our own there, the Vice President, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, the Senate President, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio, GCON, represented by Senator Ahmed Lawan, the Deputy Secretary General, United Nations, Hajia Amina J. Mohammed, GCON, distinguished members of the National Assembly here present, Your Excellencies, Executive Governors and their representatives, the Honorable Minister of State Defense, members of the Federal Executive Council, Chiefs of Defense Staff and Defense Forces from Africa, my brothers, Service Chiefs and Inspector General of Police, the Chairperson of African Union, the ECOWAS Chairman, heads of security agencies and parastatals, former Chiefs of Defense Staff and Service Chiefs, heads of corporate organizations, heads of military establishments, captains of 2025. On behalf of the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, and the good people of this great nation, I extend our warmest akwaba, bienvenue, and as we say in Nigeria, ekabo, ndeu, barka dezua, and a warm welcome to our beloved country. Your presence here is a powerful testament to our shared commitment to a more peaceful and secure Africa. Distinguished Chiefs of Defense Staff, ladies and gentlemen, today we gather at a critical juncture in our continent's history. Africa stands on the edge of unprecedented opportunity, driven by a vibrant youth population, vast resources, and a spirit of innovation. Yet, this promise is challenged by a complex and evolving spectrum of security threats. From the scourge of violent extremism and terrorism to the menace of transnational organized crime, piracy, and the insidious impacts of climate change on conflict, these challenges recognize no borders. They are hydra-headed, resilient, and demand a response that is equally dynamic, unified, and strategic. The choice of the theme of this summit, combating contemporary threats to regional peace and security in Africa, the role of defense collaboration, is both timely and pertinent. It captures the urgent need for a united action in addressing the complex and evolving security challenges confronting our continent. Consequently, this gathering offers us a rare opportunity to forge a unified front. It is a platform to harmonize our doctrines, strengthen interoperability, and build enduring trust among our defense institutions. We must therefore seize this opportunity to craft a new architecture of African-led security cooperation. As host nations, Nigeria is deeply committed to the ideals of regional stability and continental defense integration. Our armed forces have consistently contributed to peacekeeping operations, counterterrorism efforts, and humanitarian missions across Africa. We believe that true security is not achieved in isolation. It is built through shared intelligence, joint training, and coordinated action. Nigeria stands ready to work with our brothers and sisters across the continent to develop frameworks that are proactive, resilient, and responsive to the realities of our time. Distinguished colleagues, the battlefield is evolving. The threats of today are no longer confined to conventional warfare. They are digital, asymmetric, and often invisible. The enemy is within. As Chiefs of Defense Staff and heads of our armed forces, we must lead the charge in modernizing our forces, investing in cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and indigenous military technology, without which it will be difficult for us to achieve our security. The challenges before us are great, but so too is our resolve. Let us rise above division and embrace unity. Let us build a continent where our people can live free from fear and where our armed forces are symbols of stability, professionalism, and pride. Let us use this summit to explore how we can build a defense industrial base that is Africa in origin, Africa in design, and Africa in purpose. The Economic Committee of West African States, ECOWAS for short, the African Union's peace and security architecture, and other regional mechanisms have provided a vital foundation. But we must now build upon this foundation with greater resolve. We must be the architects of our own security and destiny. As we deliberate on strategy and policy, let us not forget the brave men and women who serve under our command. Many have paid the ultimate price in defense of our nations. Their courage and sacrifice must inspire us to build institutions that are not only strong, but just and accountable. Before I round down, with the permission of the special guest of honor, in order to honor those whom have paid the supreme price, both in the armed forces and as citizens of Africa, permit me to kindly request that we kindly stand up and observe a minute silence in honor of those that have paid this price. Thank you, sir. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his dynamic leadership and unwavering support to the Armed Forces of Nigeria. Your Excellency, you have always believed in the vision of a united Africa, and you have made today's gathering a reality. Let me also appreciate all our partners, regional institutions, especially ECOWAS, international allies, developmental agencies, and private sector collaborators whose unwavering support made this summit a reality. We will never forget the United Nations that have continued to provide the platform for peace all over the world. Your contributions, technical expertise, strategic collaboration, and other forms of support have been instrumental in bringing today's summit into fruition. We are grateful. To my fellow brothers and colleagues, the Chiefs of Defense Staff from across the African continent, I salute your commitment, your candor, and your courage. Your presence here in Abuja has sent a powerful message that Africa is ready to take ownership of its security narrative. Our deliberations must be frank, robust, and appreciative of our current geostrategic environment. We must therefore rise from the summit with that statement of unity and cooperation. Together, let us stand in defense of Africa. Together, let us secure our future. Viva Africa. I thank you all and wish us a fruitful deliberation. Thank you and God bless you all.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the President of the ECOWAS Commission, His Excellency Dr. Omar Aliu Toure, I wish to welcome our distinguished guests and participants to the inaugural African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit. It is my honor to acknowledge the presence, here, first and foremost of His Excellency Kashim Shettima, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably representing His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President and Chief, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency Amina Mohammed. I would also, like to recognize the presence of Mohammed Badaro Abubakar, ably represented by the Minister of State, and then other honorable members of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, leadership of the Senate, House of Representatives. Here with us also, I want to, recognize the tireless efforts also of the Chief of Defense of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Christopher Musa, and his peers from across the African continent, and all the chiefs of our defense and intelligence services across the continent here present. There are a number of dignitaries from West Africa also here present, and I crave your indulgence just to recognize a few of them. And I'm being a bit selfish because these are the former leadership of the ECOWAS Commission. First, His Excellency Lansana Kouyaté, former Executive Secretary of ECOWAS Commission, and His Excellency Mohamed Ibn Chambers, the first President of the ECOWAS Commission, here present. And our number one partner within the international community, His Excellency Leonardo Simao, the Special Representative of the Secretary General for West Africa and head of UNOWAS, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps. This inaugural summit of the African Chiefs of Defense Staff under the theme, Combating Contemporary Threats to Regional Peace and Security in Africa, the Role of Strategic Defense Collaboration, is a logical sequel to Nigerian-led continental initiative born out of the vision and determination of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to empower the peace and security intelligence establishments in this country to regionalize their initiatives to benefit the entire continent. This bold foresight has materialized in, among other endeavors, the ongoing transformation of the National Counterterrorism Center in Nigeria into an African non-kinetic counterterrorism center. The efforts to establish the Combined Maritime Task Force for the Gulf of Guinea, which will secure the combined exclusive maritime economic zone to spur the operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Area, including by securing the maritime trade corridors linking West and Central Africa to the Americas, Asia, and Europe. The Joint Doctrine and Warfare Center, recently inaugurated in Abuja, is a microcosm of the key objectives of this summit. That is, ensuring intelligence sharing, coordinated and interoperable approaches to responses to the myriad insecurity facing the continent. ECOWAS is therefore incredibly delighted and welcomes this groundbreaking summit that will, among other objectives, be discussing border management and regional security, leveraging artificial intelligence for regional security, as well as the cardinal importance of regional cooperation in responding to threats posed by terrorism and violent extremism, banditry, transnational organized crime on land, at sea, and in the skies. And most importantly, the objective to integrate the continent's burgeoning private sector into the security discourse. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, no region in Africa is spared the scourge of terrorism, civil and predatory wars, organized crime, and underdevelopment. The conflict in Eastern DRC impacts the entire Great Lakes region and beyond. The crisis in Central Africa directly impacts West Africa. And the unresolved crisis in Libya and Sudan generate and allow an inflow of terrorists into the Sahel and beyond. The various crises may be local, but they require a coordinated continental response, with the African Union serving as the glue and the ultimate coordinating hub for these endeavors. There is no gainsaying that West Africa, in particular the Sahel sub-region, has emerged as the epicenter of global terrorism, with several analytical surveys indicating that the Sahel accounted for 51% of global terrorism deaths in 2024 alone. In disparate efforts to counter terrorism in the region, some ethnic groups have been collectively and unjustifiably demonized, associating them with terrorist franchises and thus igniting civil wars alongside the fight against terrorism. In the same vein, local communities in the periphery, women and children in particular, have borne the brunt of state retreat and the coercive protection of jihadist forces. In between, the war economy is thriving, from illegal mining, forced protection, and illegal taxation. The preponderance of young people under 25 in the continent, instead of being the agents of demographic dividend, are turning into a curse due to state failings and the allure of quick financial dividends being offered by the operators of the war economy. Underlying this phenomena is the explosion of technology, sophisticated autonomous weapon systems, and the pervasive influence of social media. Against this backdrop, ECOWAS continues to manage and repair the fallout between the community and the alliance of the Sahel states, which are decided to withdraw from the ECOWAS community, alongside intensive diplomatic overtures and aimed at reuniting the region. The ECOWAS heads of state and government have taken the strategic decision in the spirit of regional solidarity to safeguard the interests of all community citizens by allowing citizens of the AES to continue to enjoy all the benefits of regional integration project launched some 50 years ago today, including the free movement of persons and the right of abode and the freedom to do trade across the entire region. The Republic of Benin is not free from the terrorist incursion so long as terrorism festers in its northern neighbors. The same can be said of all the other littoral states bordering the Sahel, thanks to porous borders, weak border security, and cross-border ethnic and trade relations knitted together over the centuries. With the interlocking and mutually destructive nature of terrorism and organized crime for the entire region, ECOWAS continues to encourage collaboration on security matters with our brothers and sisters of the Alliance of the Sahelian States, despite probably lingering political differences. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ECOWAS is acutely aware of the threat of renewed geostrategic and geopolitical processes unfolding in West Africa and beyond that threaten renewed proxy wars akin to the Cold War era, due in part to the acute insecurity facing the continent, and it is determined to avert this scenario. A first step in this direction is our efforts to scale up counter-terrorism efforts. On the directive of the ECOWAS heads of state and government, the organization is in the process of activating a 260,000 rapid deployment counter-terrorism brigade and to provide logistic and financial support to frontline states facing terrorism. While ECOWAS remains firmly committed to raising its 5,000-man brigade under the auspices of the African Peace and Security Architecture, and more particularly the Continental Standby Force, the activation of this rapid deployment force has become a necessity given the asymmetric security dynamics in the region. We are conscious of the fact that this bold initiative requires the necessary financial resources and capabilities to make it a reality. To this end, ECOWAS will be hosting a meeting of the Ministers of Finance and Defense to agree on the concrete funding modalities to raise an annual budget of 2.5 billion toward the activation of the regional counterterrorism force. The meeting of these ministers is taking place this Friday, this coming Friday in Abuja. By this initiative, ECOWAS is also throwing the gauntlet to bilateral and multilateral partners to complement this daring regional initiative. In particular, we hope that this summit will, through the African Union, send a clarion call to the United Nations to redeem the pledge made under United Nations Security Council Resolution 2719 of December 2023 to fund 75% of African-led peace support operations. Besides the counterterrorism effort, ECOWAS is also pursuing the operationalization of its integrated maritime security with the establishment of 3 integrated maritime centers across the region and an international maritime coordinating center in Abidjan, as well as in its strategy on countering transnational organized crime, among others. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, while expressing ECOWAS's deep appreciation to the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Chief of Defense Staff for this groundbreaking and promising initiative, we encourage participants at this summit to crown deliberations with concrete, practical, and innovative recommendations on mechanisms for effective intracontinental collaboration to respond to the hybrid security challenges, the myriad security challenges facing Africa, and to advance our aspirations for the Africa that we want. Many thanks for your attention and wishing all of us fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Chamber SRC Leonardo Shimao, distinguished resource persons and participant members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be part of this very timely, very special, and indeed historic event of the coming together of the African defense chiefs here in Abuja, Nigeria. For those of us who have lived through pre- and post-independence of African nations, this event conjures emotion as well as nostalgia. In this regard, we recall vividly how in the late 50s, the late President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana articulated his vision of an African collective security system through the creation of an African High Command. African High Command is the highest form of strategic defense cooperation in the continent, were it to have been established. Nkrumah's vision was further developed here in Nigeria, precisely in Lagos, in 1964, at the organization of African Unity Council of Ministers meeting, where the creation of an African High Command was high on its agenda. I draw attention to this vision, not just because of nostalgia, because as the saying goes, you can't know where you are going unless you know where you are coming from. The translation of that vision, however, into concrete reality has eluded us in the continent. This is largely due to the fact that we have to first secure our respective countries before we can then, in the concentric circles of defense policy, secure our respective regions as we strive to secure our continent. It's therefore very symbolic that Nigeria is hosting this conference of African defense chiefs today, the very first of its kind in 2025, some 61 years on. May I therefore congratulate Mr. President, His Excellency, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for facilitating this crucial African summit. Indeed, securing Nigeria has made it possible for the country to be at the forefront of securing West Africa. We're all aware of the creation of ECOWAS and its defense instrument, ECOMOG. Joined by Ghana and other member states of ECOWAS, ECOMOG was a trailblazer in the security and defense of the sub-region of West Africa. And through the instrumentality of ECOMOG, the Nigerian armed forces have made tremendous impact on the region and continue to do so. I therefore salute our chief hosts of this event, General Christopher Musa, and all the service chiefs for their focus and dedication to the peace and security of the most populous sub-region in Africa, and for their foresight in convening this inaugural African Chiefs of Defense Summit. The theme of the summit, Combating Contemporary Threats to Regional Peace and Security in Africa, the role of strategic defense collaboration, resonates strongly with many African scholars, security experts, and policymakers alike. Neither has there been lack of practical steps to combat insecurity in Africa through collective approach. The African Peace and Security Architecture and a supportive standby force have been created under the auspices of the African Union, and that African standby force was actually supposed to have become operational by 2015. The African Union Agenda 2063 emphasized silencing the guns by the year 2020, which has passed, and now shifted to 2030. Still, the guns are still blazing, as Sudan, South Sudan, the Sahel, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Southern Africa continue to witness violent conflict. According to some research work done by the African Research Network for Regional and Global Governance Innovation with headquarters in Savannah Center for Diplomacy, Democracy and Development here in Abuja, there are now over 1,000 insurgency groups in Africa, and the number keeps rising. And the majority of our Regional Economic Commission are actually dealing with banditry and terrorism and other forms of insurgency. So regional economic communities, was supposed to be primarily about economic integration, has to, of course, devote a lot of its attention to issues of dealing with banditry, terrorism, and insurgency. Let me conclude by expressing the strongest conviction that Africa's collective security can only be enhanced with active, practical, and proactive collaboration at the regional and continental levels. There must be synergy in military cooperation, promotion of common training, promotion of common doctrinal concept, sharing of intelligence, the interoperability of armaments, but also capacity building, particularly in airlifting, all of which are essential for operationalization of the African standby force. We must also upgrade and strengthen our defense industries and own our technologies in order to avoid control from external forces. Finally, this summit, this historic summit, the very first of its kind, of African defense chiefs, should not yet be another talk shop. We must strive at concrete and realistic solutions to combat old as well as new threats to peace and security in Africa. Africa must design, own, and build a security architecture that guarantees our sovereignties and guarantees human security in all of its dimensions. I thank you for your kind attention, and I wish all of us fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Permit me to stand on the protocols as established. It is my great pleasure to be part of this auspicious gathering of the 2025 African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit. This year's theme couldn't be timelier. Contemporary threats, peace, security directly affect not only the stability of our nations, but also the sustainability of vital resources, which remain the backbone of our economic growth. Therefore, this gathering is a strategic avenue to strengthen military chiefs of defense staff, support and collaboration across the continent, and to develop strategic security architecture that are fit for purpose and in line with our continental aspirations for growth, development, and security of lives and property. Security forms a key pillar of the energy business and therefore plays a very important and strategic role in achieving our national, regional, continental energy security goal. I'm speaking as the head of the largest national oil company on the continent, the NNPC Limited. We have seen the benefits of the collaboration within the security space, with significant improvements in our operating environment. The dilapidating impact of crude theft, low pipeline availability, and attacks are issues that have becoming stories of the past for us. And this has come from the immense and intentional efforts of our government security and intelligence agencies across the nation, and in particular within the Niger Delta. Today, I can proudly report to you all that our pipelines and terminal receipts of crude oil that was somewhere as low as 20-30% some periods back, we are attaining close to 100% due to the support of the security forces and the intelligence agencies. Again, this achievement would not have been possible without the professionalism, the discipline, the collaborative spirit of our defense and security institutions. We at NNPC Limited hold this partnership in the highest regard. We also know that crude theft and its attendant illegal activities are by no means a purely localized occurrence. Rather, these operations involve sophisticated international syndicates that take advantage of gaps within the states, national, regional, and continental security architecture to conduct their illicit activities. It is therefore imperative that forums such as these are encouraged with a view to strengthen strategic, tactical, and operational activities within the continent. Africa must take its destiny into its hands and chart a collective way forward that meets the goals and aspirations of our people. As stakeholders within the energy industry, and in light of growing geopolitical tension around the world, NNPC Limited wishes to restate our commitment to supporting the effort of the various security agencies and intelligence agencies, and willingness to collaborate and cooperate with the military and intelligence agencies. This support and collaboration have been demonstrated, as mentioned earlier, with our successes in industry-wide security architecture here in Nigeria, which has greatly reduced the incidence of sabotage, vandalism, crude theft, illegal refineries, illegal bunkering, and piracy. We envision, by virtue of this gathering and the initiatives to be developed, an expanded architecture that takes into account the activities on a regional and continental level, with all the enabling tools, policies, and technologies to allow seamless synergies and collaboration across borders. So, as this summit deliberates in deepening strategic defense collaboration across Africa, let me assure you that the oil and gas sector in Nigeria stands ready to complement this effort, as we eagerly articulate the benefits to be accrued for the ultimate upliftment of all the stakeholders as citizenry across our borders. Together, we can safeguard Africa's resources, ladies and gentlemen. We can reinforce the peace and create an enabling environment for prosperity of our people. Do accept assurance of our highest regard on behalf of NNPC Limited and the Nigerian industry. Thank you very much.
My special thanks to General Musa for personally inviting me and my colleague, Helen Doyley, to present on the importance and significance of sports recovery and the power of the Invictus movement. I would like to take this opportunity to highlight the legacy that General Musa is establishing here in Nigeria as a result of his championing the Invictus movement and developing sports recovery on behalf of his troops. We recognize and acknowledge the gravitas of this event, proven by the concentration of so many senior figures decision makers, and leaders who have travelled so far to be here today. My name is David Wiseman. I served as an infantry officer in the British Army and had the honour of commanding soldiers in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, my career was cut short after I was shot in the chest during a firefight with the Taliban in 2009. I carry the round in my chest today. It's rattling around in there somewhere. Engaging in sport and adventurous challenge was key to my own recovery. Post-injury, I successfully climbed some of the world's highest mountains and swam competitively at an international level. These experiences taught me the power of sport as a catalyst for successful rehabilitation, in rediscovering passion for living after life-changing injuries, in realizing potential to do more, to move into a career after the military, and in creating a new identity that wasn't bound to or defined by wounds, limitations, or the scarring experiences that I'm sure many of us in this room share. Since leaving the army, I have dedicated my life to helping others achieve this success. I now serve on the senior leadership team of the Invictus Games Foundation. So what is this Invictus movement? The Invictus movement started the inaugural Invictus Games in London, started by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, who continues to lead the movement today. The Invictus Games has been repeated every 2 years in cities around the world, with hundreds of injured personnel gathering from 25 nations to compete across a range of adaptive sports. It's an incredible public spectacle, with world leaders supporting in the stands alongside competitors, friends and families, plus tens of thousands from the general public, all whilst being broadcast to millions around the world. The Invictus Games are yet to be held in Africa. It is our genuine hope that they will do someday soon. Between and beyond the Games, the Invictus Games Foundation works hard as the world's leading NGO supporting wounded, injured and sick service personnel and veterans through sport and adventurous challenge. As proven by my presence here today and by the incredible work that's taking place here in Nigeria, we operate at the political level to catalyse systemic change across a growing international movement, focusing on where the need is great, whilst maintaining support for the community we have built over the past decade. The establishment of sports recovery is not just the right thing to do, based on the enhanced recovery and rehabilitation outcomes that result from engaging in sports recovery activity. It is also a clear demonstration that leaders care for their troops. Empathy for troops, especially those who become injured, is key to the moral component of fighting power. A soldier who feels that he will be looked after and respected should he become injured is easier to recruit, easier to retain, and will work and will fight harder for his commanders. Over his tenure, and in partnership with the Invictus Games Foundation and delivery partner Africa Unconquered, General Musa has championed the development of sports recovery here in Nigeria. A series of events that captured the world's attention, initially when Nigerian service personnel secured multiple medals at 2 Invictus Games. Secondly, when Harry and Meghan, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, visited Nigeria just last year to spend time with and honour the armed forces community. And most recently, when General Musa and the Right Honourable Mr. Abu Bakar broke ground on the new Armed Forces Invictus Centre to support the rehabilitation of wounded personnel here in Abuja. General Musa is building a tremendous legacy for his time as CDS and setting conditions for future leaders to build upon it. It has been a personal and professional highlight in my career to see the great work that has taken place here in Nigeria. But the work is not complete. Concerning the Invictus movement, Nigeria stands alone on the continent of Africa. And I hope that here, this week, we can change that. When we think about the need, I drew inspiration from Professor Gambari's speech earlier. 1,000 insurgent groups here on the continent of Africa. And he set the challenge that this should not be a talking shop. Well, I offer you, ladies and gentlemen, something very practical that we can take away from this week. My colleague and fellow member of the senior leadership team, Helen Doyley, and I invite you, the most powerful military men on the continent of Africa, drawing from the spirit and ethos of this conference, I stand here with an offer of friendship and collaboration, an open invitation for every African nation to join the Invictus movement. We ask for nothing in return, just a simple pledge to commit to supporting men and women in uniform by establishing and developing sports recovery. The call to action is for the distinguished leaders gathered here is to find me or Helen this week and express your nation's interest in joining the Invictus movement. Consider this perhaps the first stage in building upon Nigeria's example, the first step to sending a national team to the Invictus Games and to be celebrated the world over. But deeper than this, it's an opportunity to be a champion of sports recovery, a champion for the welfare of your men and women in uniform, whom it is always an honor for true leaders to serve. Finally, I promise, finally. And this is my second promise. I made you that first one right at the start. This is my second promise. I promise you, reference that bullet that's still in my chest. If you come and talk to me about the Invictus movement anytime this week, I will show you the X-ray and I will let you into the secret whether or not I set off airport security when I go through the gates. Thank you very much.
Republic of Nigeria, represented today by Nigeria's unflappable number 2 citizen, His Excellency, the very distinguished Senator Kashim Shettima, to deliver his special guest of honor speech. Thank you, sir.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, ably represented by the Vice Chairman, House Committee on Defense, Right Honorable Ahmed Abdullahi Kalambaina, and all the members of the National Assembly present here. The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, my own Ms. Amina Mohammed. The former Prime Minister of the Republic of Guinea, His Excellency Lansana Kouyaté, the former President of ECOWAS Commission, His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers, the President of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Umar Aliu Toure, ably represented by the ECOWAS Commissioner, Political Affairs, Peace and Security Ambassador Abdul Fattah Musa, the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, Dr. Muhammad Bello Matoli Maradun, the former Minister of External Affairs, former permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, elder statesman, Professor Ibrahim Agbola Gambari, CFR. The convener and chief host, the Nigerian Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Gwabin Musa, OFR, and other service chiefs and defense chiefs from African countries, all service chiefs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, former chiefs of defense staff, and service chiefs present here. I'm quite delighted and appreciative of their showing solidarity with General Gwabin Musa. I want to mention Air Chief Marshal Mohammed Alamin Dagash, General A.O. Ogbomudia, General Martin Luther Agwai, Admiral O.S. Ibrahim, Air Chief Marshal O.O. Peterin, General A.G. Olonishakin, General, this is my own very personal friend, General Loki Elionye Oye Nuchua Irabo, and former service chiefs, Lieutenant General O.A. Ihejerika, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, Vice Admiral A.Z. Gambo, and Air Marshal I.O. Amao. We truly appreciate your presence here. Heads of military establishments and senior military officers, both serving and retired, heads of security and paramilitary agencies present here, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the academia, especially a Pan-Africanist and activist, Professor Patrick Lodge Otiono Lumumba. International organizations represented here, captains of industry, equally represented by the MD, by the Group Chief Operating Officer of NNPC, heads of federal government agencies and parastatals, distinguished delegates, members of the Fourth Estate of the Rim, honored guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to first of all appreciate our own irrepressible degree in English in 1981. I was a secondary school pupil. She's a creative writer. She has MSc, MA in Comparative Policy Studies from City University of London, and another MA in Creative Writing from another university in the UK. She wrote 2 books. One, an essay, and a poetry, a book of poems. So Uniabu, we are ever grateful. For 17 years, she was the anchor at NTA, NTA's prime time news by 9 p.m. She retired, but not tired. She retired as an executive director of programs at NTA. So we have to eulogize you. We have to celebrate you. We have to honor you, and we have to respect you. The reality of our geography has made us more than kith and kin. We are bound as a family, sharing not just borders, but destiny. And in this family, defense is the first expression of love each member can promise the other. This gathering is therefore not just a convergence of uniforms and titles. It is a summoning of Africa's guardians to the village square of ideas. There has never been a time when our collective defense invited us so urgently to sit together and reason together. This summit, the first of its kind, will not have come at a better time. I am therefore deeply honored to welcome each of you to Abuja, the heart of Nigeria and the home of Africa's endless possibilities. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the enormity of threats across our continent compels us to pause and reflect. From the deserts where insurgency festers, to the high seas where piracy prowls, from the silent corridors of cybercrime to the ruthless networks of transnational criminals, none of these tragedies respect borders, and neither should our response. What is true of our challenges must also be true of our resolve. We cannot neutralize these threats in isolation. This is the moment to reassess our military objectives in the collective aspirations to make Africa safe. It is time to forge a new doctrine of continental defense, one rooted in trust, shared intelligence, and coordinated strategy. Nigeria's promise has always been simple and firm: to be a good neighbor and a brother's keeper in the struggle for peace. Our armed forces have stood shoulder to shoulder with our neighbors and far beyond in peacekeeping missions, counter-terrorism operations, and humanitarian endeavors. We hold no illusion. Security is the foundation upon which the edifice of progress must stand. That is why we must use this summit not merely as a meeting, but as a covenant to deepen cooperation through joint training, harmonized doctrines, and interoperable systems. For this to endure, we must build a framework where our defense institutions speak with one voice and act with one purpose. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the nature of warfare has evolved. The threats of today are asymmetric, digital, and often invisible. Our response must not be less dynamic. We must invest in cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and indigenous military innovation. Africa cannot remain merely a consumer of technology. We must be creators, innovators, and owners of the tools that secure our tomorrow. I therefore urge this summit to explore avenues for defense industrial collaboration, research partnerships, and African-led solutions to African security challenges. In this journey, I call upon the organized private sector to be our ally, to invest in the future of defense as an investment in the survival of nations. Our struggles for peace have not come without heroes and heroines. Across battlefields known and unknown, valiant men and women of our armed forces have laid down their lives in defense of their nations. Their sacrifice is the eternal price of peace, and the least we can do is honor them by ensuring their legacy is enshrined in the institutions we build, the values we uphold, and the partnerships we forge. So this summit must not dissolve with the applause of its closing session. I propose the establishment of a permanent African Chiefs of Defense Staff Forum, a platform for continuous dialogue, strategic foresight, and operational coordination. Let us institutionalize this spirit of unity and make it the cornerstone of Africa's security architecture. The future of Africa depends on the choices we make today. Let us rise above division and embrace cooperation. Let us imagine and build an Africa where peace is not the exception but the norm, where the language of war gives way to the grammar of progress, and where the dignity of our people is shielded by our collective resolve. Finally, I reserve for special recognition and in deference to my sister, Ms. Amina J. Mohammed, I wish to recognize and appreciate Field Marshal Ogogo Lillian Musa. You know, the wives of our service chiefs, our army officers are a step above their husbands. Then General Gwabin Musa is a general, so I will address her as Field Marshal Ogogo Lillian Musa. We appreciate you. We thank you most sincerely with your team for holding the home port. You are the fulcrum on which our society rests. We are mightily proud of you and we appreciate your efforts. On behalf of the government and people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I welcome you once again to Abuja. May your deliberations be fruitful, your partnerships enduring, and your vision clear and focused. On this note, it is my singular honor and privilege, on behalf of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to declare open the African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit, Abuja 2025. Thank you, and may God bless us all.
I'd like to crave the indulgence of His Excellency to please remain on the podium for the souvenirs that the Chief of Defense Staff will be presenting to him. At this point, I'd like His Excellency, our special guest of honor, who has delivered such a heartwarming special guest of honor speech on behalf of Mr. President, is the Chief of Defense that has been presented. a photo moment. Congratulations to the Chief of Defense Staff, and we thank our special guest of honor for all that he does. At this point, I'd like to also have the next souvenir